Dear Mr. Mayor, hi, my name is Colin Andrews. I'm an aspiring film critic, filmmaker, musician, and video essayist. I hope that the day is treating you well, and I know you haven't seen any of my content, but I'll let you know right now. Having a staple in my life, let alone for over a decade, is something that I find very difficult to attain. Yet, you've been exactly that for me. I started listening to you when Room for Squares came out in 2001, and even 5-year-old me really enjoyed the sonic quality of your music. Even at that time, although I had absolutely zero amount of awareness what the lyrics were saying, St. Patrick's Day felt incredibly melancholic to me. Sentiment sticks with me to this very day, and I make sure to purposefully listen to it on the titular day. Anyways, I'm getting off track. I followed your career intently throughout the next almost 2 decades until current day. I have so many memories of your music being in the background of the silent moments that held so much weight to them, and there are so many, in fact, getting through every single one of them would be nearly impossible. So, because I don't want to talk your ear off and make this video a bore to sit through, I'm going to focus on one specific section of time that kind of encompasses a lot of things. And that section starts in April of 2014, which was the month of my graduation from high school. Seeing as my graduating class was relatively small, I think there were about 50 of us in total, there was generally a designated person in place of having cliques. For example, there was a guy named Luke in place of the athletes, Sydney in place of the popular clique, and there was little old me in place of the theater kid / musician. So when the director of our choir, which I was the lead bass in, came up to me a couple weeks before the ceremony and asked me to perform a song that would occur immediately before the valedictorian speech, I had no other choice but to accept. Literally, I had no other choice because the principal wanted a music number and there was no way I was letting one of my classmates go down in front of hundreds of people like that. And lucky for me, I was very close with the choir director, as on days where he was feeling off and having to deal with stuff for his other classes, I would lead rehearsals. So because he liked me and I hadn't done anything to prove untrustworthy, he said I could choose the song I was to perform. With the thought in mind, I went home racking my brain as to what I would do. There had to be some semblance of progression in the lyrics, it had to be family friendly, and Lord knows most of the stuff I listened to then was not that. And it also had to be a song that meant something to me. In order to search for the right song, I opened up my school-provided laptop while laying on my tiny twin bed in my townhouse and started scrolling through songs in search of the one that would really hit the spot. At this point, you could probably guess what I decided on from your catalog, or at least the catalog that you had at the time. I eventually dug into my playlist that I had dedicated to you and came to the morbid realization that Stop This Train would be the perfect song to perform and definitely checks off every single category that I just listed. Except there was an issue, and a major issue at that. I hadn't listened to Stop This Train since my father passed away. Everything about the song reminded me of him and how much of his life he had left to live, and how much life I had left to live with him, and how everything just had to go awry at the complete wrong moment. There's even a decent amount of the song where you talk about your parents getting older, and I don't have to explain how that would affect me on a rather intense emotional wavelength. I'm not much of a crier, and I was terrified that if I listened to it, everything would come flooding back and it would be far too much for me to handle. So, in a confused emotional state, I gave myself the night to think about it. I woke up the following morning, and I was actually more than sure it was something I needed to do. Although I was incredibly nervous about even the idea of it, I knew this would be an opportunity to face something from somebody that I really enjoy, and perhaps give myself a reprieve of everything that the song had built up inside of me for the past 6 years. So, the following Monday, I walked into Mr. M's office and told him I would be doing that song. This was the catalyst for what seemed like an eternity of a 2-week rehearsal process that would be far more strenuous than I anticipated. For one, since I was someone who couldn't play guitar, Mr. M got one of his friends to practice with me as well, who just so happened to actually play guitar. We got together every single day after school to work on everything in the abandoned choir room while the rest of the school was bustling with extracurricular activities. It was as if I was trapped alone in a room with my demons, and a dude with a man bun who was half asleep for the majority of his time there. Seeing as we both knew the song, we never had to play it for reference, and in a way that kind of helped me out by not having the direct reminder shoved in my face, and eventually by the last night before graduation, I got myself comfortable to the point where I was singing the song without having any lingering thoughts in my mind. Everything was good. But was it? Somehow, when I was laying in my bed the night before, I felt shaky, as if there was still something inside of me that was unresolved that would prevent me from putting out as good of a performance as I knew I could. So, with reluctance, I put in my earbuds, took the leap of faith, and turned on Stop This Train. And just like I had anticipated, the impact slowly keeled me over into a fetal position. Everything came running back. The many trips that I took to Pittsburgh to see my family, and listening to you on the drives there while passing countless beautiful hills and a mystical aura of a childhood that I used to know. Before it was important for me to grow up and become a man at a rather early age, I used to ride around Pittsburgh listening to Continuum and Heavier Things, breathing the air that always had the perfect temperature to it. Going to Pirates games with my friends, visiting the Carnegie Museums, and going to my favorite diner that I still remember like the back of my hand that eventually got replaced by a CVS and left me devastated. Every single one of your songs held a certain level of nostalgia for me, but Stop This Train brought me back to before the trauma, a brief period where I was blissfully ignorant to the world around me. So, surprisingly, although I did start crying, they were actually tears of joy. Hearing you sing your song brought me back to a part of my life that I didn't often get to focus on, and it still does to this day, even right now, as I am listening to it while I write you this letter. And I don't know if I will be able to properly articulate how much that actually means to me, so I'm not going to attempt to. Just know that it's a lot. Anyways, tomorrow came, the performance went off effortlessly, and I was pretty happy about it. However, that really wasn't the part of the day that put a conclusion on everything. It was the same night at a bonfire that people in my class were throwing. I normally didn't go to social events, but my girlfriend at the time, who was the homecoming queen, wanted to make an appearance, and I would have felt weird if I didn't go with her. And as me and the people that I had spent the past 4 years with were sitting around the campfire, my actual friends that were there started to request an encore of the song, as someone had brought their guitar with them. I succumbed to the pressure, and I did it. And it was wonderful. I had my past and present merging into one moment, and a whirlwind of memories started infiltrating my mind as I whisper sang my way through that song. It was only at this moment that I received the closure that I was so desperately seeking. And that is all thanks to you, Mr. Mayor. So, thank you for that, and thank you for the amazing catalog of music you have continuously put out to the world to enjoy. It means much more than you know. Sincerely, Colin Andrews.